In a forgotten village hidden deep inside a cursed forest, young girls had been disappearing for many generations, and every man who tried to discover the truth either became crazy or died. But when Naya heard the songs of the women in red under the rain, she understood that something ancient had awakened beneath Kavula, something fed for centuries by fear, blood, and human secrets. This story becomes darker with every chapter, so stay until the end if you dare to discover the secret of Kavula. Deep inside a forgotten land called the Kingdom of Nzale, there was a village named Kavula, hidden in a forest so thick that even sunlight seemed afraid to enter. A strange village, a cursed village. At first, Kavula looked like many villages in Central Africa. Red mud houses, barefoot children playing in the dust, women preparing cassava early in the morning, and men returning from the river with silver fish still moving. But behind the smiles, something was wrong. The crops died before harvest. Baby goats were born dead. The men became weak, then disappeared, and worst of all, no girl born in Kavula lived past the age of 25. None. The old women said an ancient curse slept under the village, a curse connected to women, but nobody dared to speak about it loudly, because in Kavula, the walls had ears, and at night, the forest answered back. This story began with a girl named Naya. Naya was 17 years old. She was very beautiful. Her dark skin shined like ebony under the rain. Her eyes had a strange hazel color that nobody else in the village had. Whenever she walked through the market, men always turned to look at her. Even old women whispered, "This child carries something." Her mother, Mama Deka, was a widow. Poor, very poor. They lived in a small broken house at the edge of the village, near the forbidden trees where birds never sang. Every night, Mama Deka told her daughter, never go outside after sunset, but Naya never understood why, until that night. Heavy rain fell over Kavula. The wind blew so hard that the doors shook. Naya was sleeping when she heard something, a song, far away women's voices, soft, hypnotic, like a strange call. She slowly opened her eyes. Her mother was sleeping deeply, but outside, the singing continued. Naya walked toward the window, and her blood turned cold in the middle of the rain. Women were walking barefoot through the mud, all dressed in red. Their bodies were covered with black clay. They walked toward the forbidden forest while singing in an ancient language. Naya did not know, and among them were girls from the village, girls she recognized. Some were supposed to have died years ago. Naya stepped back quickly. Her heart beat so fast she thought she would die. Then, one of the women slowly turned her head toward her. Her face was empty. No eyes, no nose. Only one huge, smiling mouth. Naya almost screamed, and suddenly, knock, 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 someone was knocking at the door. 3 knocks, slow, heavy. Her mother woke up immediately, and when she heard the knocking, Mama Deka's face became white with fear. "Oh no," she whispered. She grabbed Naya's arm tightly. "Listen to me carefully. No matter what happens, do not look outside." The knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. Then a woman's voice spoke behind the door. A rough voice, not human. "We came for the girl." Mama Deka started shaking. Naya felt her legs becoming weak. The voice continued. "The village is hungry." A terrible silence filled the house. Then, something slowly scratched the outside wall like fingernails. Long, very long. Naya could barely breathe. Her mother was crying silently now. And suddenly, the smell of fresh blood filled the house. Then another voice whispered behind the window, "She is marked." Naya turned her head by instinct and saw her reflection in the glass. But it was not really her anymore. Behind her reflection, someone was standing there, a giant old woman, her face covered with scars, her eyes completely white, and around her neck, dozens of necklaces made from human teeth. The creature smiled, then she whispered, "At last. The last girl is born," and suddenly the whole house fell into darkness. If this story already interests you, subscribe now so you never miss our next mysterious and terrifying stories. When the house fell into darkness, Naya screamed, a scream so loud and sharp that even the rain seemed to stop for 1 second. Then everything became silent again, too silent. Even the night insects stopped singing. Mama Deka grabbed an old oil lamp and lit it with shaking hands. The weak light showed something horrible. The door of the house was slightly open. But only seconds earlier, it had been closed, and the mud on the floor had footprints on it, dozens of them, small barefoot footprints, as if many women had entered the house. Before disappearing, Mama Deka almost dropped the lamp. They came back. She whispered. Naya felt fear growing inside her. Who are they? Her mother stayed silent, then slowly. She knelt in front of her daughter, and for the first time since she was a child, Naya saw real fear in her mother's eyes. An old fear, a fear that had lived inside her for years. You must listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, and never repeat it outside. Rain continued hitting the roof while Mama Deka spoke softly. Long ago, before you were born, Kavula was a rich village. The harvests were good. The men brought back animals from hunting. Children laughed everywhere. She swallowed slowly. Then the men started to change. Naya frowned. Change how? They became obsessed with money, power, and young girls. The lamp flickered. The wind seemed to listen to their conversation. The village elders started selling poor girls to travelers from faraway roads. Rich men, traders, soldiers. Naya felt her heart slow down. They forced some girls to sleep with these men to bring money to the village. Her voice broke. Even children. Naya covered her mouth. No. Mama Deka slowly nodded. Many died. Others disappeared into the forest. But one night, a girl named Sona refused. The name felt heavy in the air, like a forbidden word. Sona was different. People said she could speak with the forest spirits. The elders tried to force her to join the other girls. So they locked her inside the old sacred house near the river. Thunder rumbled far away. Mama Deka continued. The next morning, all the men who were with her were found dead. Their bodies were dry, like all their blood was gone. Naya felt cold fear run through her body. And Sona? Mama Deka slowly looked toward the window. Nobody ever saw her again. Silence filled the room. Then her mother whispered, But that night, the curse began. Since that day, the girls of Kavula were marked from birth. Some became strangely beautiful, too beautiful. Men lost their minds when they looked at them. Then came sickness, madness, death, and every generation. Girls disappeared into the forest. People called them the Red Girls of Kavula, because before disappearing, they were always seen wearing red, just like the women Naya saw in the rain. Naya slowly stepped backward. Why did you never tell me this? Mama Deka looked away. Because I prayed you would never become like them. Then her voice shook. But now, they found you. Suddenly a sound came from behind the house. Ducks crack like a branch breaking. Then another and another, something, was moving around the house. Slowly. Naya stopped breathing for a moment. Mama Deka quickly turned off the lamp. Don't speak anymore. The darkness became complete. Then whispers started outside. Dozens of women's voices, some laughing, some crying, and among them, one voice softly sang, Naya, Naya. The girl's legs began shaking. The voice continued, Come with us. Then suddenly, her face appeared at the window, white twisted, its eyes completely black. It was a girl from the village, but her neck was bent backward, and she was smiling. Behind her, more red figures slowly came out of the forest. 1, 2, 10, 20. Dozens of women standing still under the rain, all staring at the house. Then the girl at the window opened her mouth, and a deep voice, impossible for a human, came out. The pact must end. Mama Deka began crying silently. They will come back for her before the full moon. Naya whispered, Who? Her mother answered softly, The elders, then. Someone knocked at the door again, but this time, it was not a woman, it was a man, and his voice made Naya's blood turn cold. Open the door. The village council wants to see the girl. Mama Deka froze. Her lips were shaking so much that she could not speak. Outside the rain was still falling hard. But the whispers of the women had disappeared, as if something even worse had arrived. The man's voice came again from behind the door. Open immediately. Knock, 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 each. Knock made the walls shake. Naya felt a strange cold move through her body. Her mother slowly walked toward the door, very, slowly like someone walking toward death. Before opening, she turned toward Naya. No matter what they say, never look into their eyes. Then she opened the door. 3 men stood outside the house, 3 old men, but something about them felt wrong. The first wore a long black robe covered with red symbols. The second had white powder all over his face, and the third man had almost no teeth, but he was smiling, a wet and frightening smile. All of them carried sticks carved with strange human faces. Behind them, the village looked empty, no lights, no sounds, as if everyone had locked themselves inside their homes. The tallest old man stared at Naya, and immediately, the girl felt a terrible pain in her chest, like something was trying to enter her mind. She looks like Sona. His voice sounded deep and unnatural. Mama Deka quickly stepped in front of her daughter. "Leave us alone." The old man slowly turned his head toward her. Then he laughed dryly. "You still think you can stop this?" The second elder stepped forward, and Naya noticed something horrible under his robe. His feet were turned backward, like the feet of a spirit. The girl stepped back in fear. The man smiled. She can already see. The 3 old men looked at each other silently. Then the oldest one spoke. "The council has decided. The girl must come to the temple before the full moon." Mama Deka shouted immediately, "No!" Her voice echoed through the night, but nobody in the village answered, as if everyone was too afraid to listen. The old man looked at her coldly. "You know the rules. Every generation must offer 1 girl." Naya felt her heart stop. "Offer?" Mama Deka shook her head while crying. "You already took my sister, my cousin, all the others." The old man stepped closer, then whispered, "And because of that." The village is still standing. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Naya finally asked, "What is inside the temple?" The 3 old men stopped smiling. The wind suddenly blew hard around the house, and for 1 second, Naya thought she heard screams coming from the forest, women screaming. Finally, the oldest man answered, "The one who protects Kavula. After they left, Mama." Deka quickly locked the door with old rusty chains. Then she pushed a heavy cabinet in front of the entrance. Her hands were shaking so badly that she dropped things on the floor. Naya could not take it anymore. "Mama, tell me the truth!" Mama Deka turned around suddenly. Tears were running down her face. The village sold its soul a long time ago. She sat heavily on the floor, then she finally began telling the story nobody dared to speak about in Kavula, more than 50 years ago. A terrible famine hit the kingdom of Nzali. Children were dying. The rivers were dry. People even ate poisonous roots to survive, so the village elders went into the forbidden forest, place where no human should go. They searched for a spirit powerful enough to save Kavula, and they found it, or rather, it found them. Mama Deka now spoke in a very low voice, like she was afraid something invisible was listening. They say it lived underground. An ancient creature, older than the kingdoms themselves. Naya felt her breathing become fast. What did it want? Her mother closed her eyes. Girls, the room became ice cold. Every generation, the village had to offer pure young girls to it. In return, the crops returned. Diseases disappeared. War stayed away from Kavula. Naya felt sick, and the elders accepted that. Mama Deka suddenly burst into tears. They were afraid of dying. Then she whispered, "But with time, things changed." Her voice became even quieter. The men of the village started using the girls before offering them. Naya felt her stomach twist in disgust. Mama Deka continued. Poor girls were forced to sleep with travelers, traders and soldiers. The elders said it brought money to the village before the sacrifice. Disgust filled Naya's heart. And nobody stopped them? Her mother slowly looked at her. Anyone who spoke against it died. Then she added, Sona tried. The name seemed to shake the air inside the house. And suddenly, boom! Something hit the roof hard. Naya jumped in fear. Then again, boom! Boom! As if something very heavy was walking above them. Mama Deka turned pale immediately. No! A horrible smell filled the house. The smell of wet earth. And rotten flesh, then. Her rough voice slowly came down from the ceiling. The girl belongs to the village. Naya looked up and saw black fingers slowly coming through the straw roof. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were Naya? Naya screamed and quickly stepped back. The Black fingers continued sliding slowly through the straw. Roof long too long, they moved like human. Spiders. Mama Decker quickly grabbed a small calabash hanging on the wall and poured its contents around the house. Grey. Powder. The moment it touched the ground, the fingers stopped moving. Then a terrible, inhuman scream exploded above the roof. A horrible sound, part woman, part animal, part dying old man. Boom! Something jumped from the roof into the forest. The trees shook violently. Then silence returned, but this time, the silence felt alive. Naya was breathing hard. What was that? Mama Decker kept staring at the ceiling, as if she feared it would come back. They came to see if you are ready. Her mother whispered, the monster's wives that night. Nobody slept. Mama Decker forced Naya to sit in the middle of the house inside the grey powder circle. She kept an old rusty machete on her knees. Outside, footsteps still moved around the house, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, and from time to time, a woman's laugh echoed in the darkness, a laugh so empty that it made the air feel cold. Around midnight, Naya noticed something strange. The walls were moving slightly, like they were breathing. She blinked many times, but the walls kept moving. The mud walls slowly expanded, then shrank again like the chest of a living creature. Mama. Mama Decker quickly looked up. Then fear filled her face, because she could see it too. Suddenly, a voice came from inside the walls. Naya. The girl started shaking. The voice was weak, like someone buried alive. Help us. Then more voices appeared. Dozens, hundreds, women, girls. Some were crying, others were begging, and he keeps us under the ground. He eats our faces. Don't go to the temple. Tears filled Naya's eyes. Mama Decker suddenly stood up and hit the wall with the machete. Be quiet. Immediately, all the voices disappeared. Then, a deep laugh echoed beneath the floor. The ground shook. Slightly, like something huge was moving under the house. Naya suddenly felt strange heat under her bare feet. Then a crack slowly appeared in the dirt floor, a small black crack, growing bigger and bigger, until a horrible smell rose from below, the smell of old blood. Mama Decker quickly stepped back. But Naya could hear something coming from inside the crack, breathing, slow, huge. Then an eye appeared inside the opening, a giant white eye. Human, but impossible. The pupil moved slowly, watching Naya, and suddenly the eye smiled. Yes, even the eye itself seemed to smile. Then a voice rose from the darkness below. Finally! The floor suddenly exploded. Dirt flew everywhere inside the house, and a giant hand burst out of the hole. A black hand, covered in scars, with nails shaped like knives. Mama Decker grabbed her daughter. Run! The two ran out of the house screaming. Rain was still falling over the village, but something had changed. All the house doors were open, all of them, and the people of Kavula were standing outside, motionless, under the rain, men, women, old people, children, all staring at Naya, without speaking, without moving, like they were hypnotized. Then slowly, they all pointed toward the forbidden forest. At the same moment, the drums began. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy drums coming from deep inside the forest, and the villagers started whispering together. The last girl, the last girl, the last girl. Fear completely filled Naya's heart. Then she saw something behind the villagers, a giant shadow standing between the trees, too tall to be human. Its head almost touched the branches. And around it, dozens of women in red were kneeling. The creature slowly raised one arm toward Naya. Then the drums suddenly stopped, and all the villagers spoke together. The groom has arrived. Thunder exploded above Kavula, but nobody moved. The villagers stood still under the rain, staring at Naya, as if they were no longer truly human. Their lips kept whispering, "The groom has arrived. The groom has arrived." Mama Decker grabbed her daughter's arm tightly. "Don't look at the creature." But it was too late. Naya had already seen its eyes, two giant white lights floating in the darkness of the forest, and at that exact moment, something entered her mind. Vision brutal, terrifying. She saw young girls running through the forest, without clothes but covered in blood. Men wearing wooden masks were chasing them. The girls screamed. They begged for mercy, but the men laughed. Then a giant stone door appeared underground, and behind that door Something was breathing, a huge breath, wet-hungry. The girls were thrown inside alive, and the screams continued even after the door closed. Naya suddenly came back to reality and fell into the mud. She vomited. Mama Deka understood immediately. Her face became pale with fear. No. It touched your mind, far away. The giant shadow slowly walked toward the village. Each step shook the ground. The trees seemed to bend before it, and the closer it came, the more the villagers smiled, as if they had waited for this moment for many years. Then Naya heard a strange sound crack. She slowly looked up. The village chief's neck had just snapped by itself, but the man was still smiling. His head now hung to one side in an impossible position, yet he still spoke. The wedding must begin. Other villagers started changing too. Some walked on all fours. Others had completely white eyes. One old woman opened her mouth, and dozens of black insects crawled out. Naya stepped back in horror. They are not human anymore. Mama Deka whispered, "They stopped being human a long time ago." Then the drums began again. Boom, boom, boom. Women dressed in red slowly came out of the forest, the same women Naya saw the first night. But this time, she could see them clearly. Some of their feet did not touch the ground. Some had arms that were too long, others had no faces. And some had open stomachs, as if something had ripped them apart from the inside. Still, they continued singing, a slow and ancient song, hypnotic. All the villagers knelt at the same time, even the children. Mama Deka forced Naya to kneel too. "To it, or they will kill us now." Naya was shaking so badly she could barely breathe. Then the creature finally stepped completely out of the forest, and suddenly the world became quiet. Even the rain slowed down. The groom was over 3 meters tall. Its body looked like the body of a thin man, but it was covered with scars and strange symbols carved into its flesh. Its arms were far too long, and around its neck hung necklaces made from women's hair. But the worst part was its face, or rather, its faces, because it had many of them, the faces of young girls sewn onto its skin. Some were crying, others were still whispering softly. Naya felt frozen with fear. Then one of the faces opened its eyes and spoke with the voice of a young girl. "Save us." Mama Deka covered her mouth in horror. "Oh God!" The groom stopped in front of Naya. The smell coming from its body was unbearable, like wet graves and burned flesh. Then it slowly stretched its giant hand toward her. All the villagers whispered together, "Accept him, accept him, accept him." Suddenly Naya felt something moving under her skin, like worms crawling inside her arms. She screamed in pain, and red marks started appearing on her body, the same symbols carved into the creature. "Mama!" Deka suddenly shouted, "No, she does not belong to you." Then unexpectedly, she pulled out a small hidden knife and stabbed her own hand. Blood fell onto the ground immediately, and the groom stepped back violently, as if the blood had burned it. All the villagers screamed like monsters at the same time. Mama Deka grabbed Naya. "Run to the river, find Sona." Naya froze. "But she is dead." Her mother looked at her with terrified eyes. Then she whispered the words that changed everything. "No." She became something else, and suddenly the groom let out a roar so powerful that several houses in the village collapsed. Like this video if you also think Kavula is the scariest village you have ever heard about in a story. The groom's roar shook all of Kavula. The walls of the houses cracked, windows exploded, and many villagers fell to the ground screaming while blood ran from their ears. But Mama Deka did not let go of Naya's hand. "Run!" The two ran through the village under the heavy rain, while the possessed villagers screamed behind them. Some crawled through the mud. Others smashed their heads against trees while repeating, "Bring back the bride. Bring back the bride." Naya cried while running. Her legs were shaking, and the red symbols on her skin burned more and more, as if something was growing inside her, behind them. The drums continued, boom, 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 faster, now like a giant heart beating under the earth. The sacred river was behind the forbidden forest, a place nobody dared to visit. Even hunters avoided that area, because people said that on some nights the river sang with human voices. Mama Deka moved carefully through the dark trees. The forest seemed alive. Branches moved by themselves, some looked like they were trying to grab Naya as she passed by, and everywhere. Pieces of red cloth hung from the trees, like warnings or graves. Then Naya saw something on the ground, a bracelet. She picked it up, and suddenly her heart tightened. "I know this." Mama Dacre turned pale. "It belonged to your aunt." Naya quickly looked up. Her aunt had disappeared when she was little. People told her that her aunt had gone to live somewhere far away. But now, she understood the truth. All the missing girls had come here suddenly. The wind stopped completely. Even the rain seemed frozen. Then a woman's voice echoed through the darkness. "You are late." Mama Dacre froze. Naya felt her blood turn cold. A figure stood beside the river, a very tall woman. Her hair touched the ground, her skin strangely shined under the hidden moonlight, and her eyes were not human. They looked like moving water. Mama Dacre whispered, "Sona." The woman slowly smiled, but her smile looked sad, very sad. Naya stepped back in fear. You are alive?" Sona tilted her head slightly, then answered, "Not really." Her voice sounded like many people speaking at the same time, as if other women lived inside her. Then Naya noticed something horrible. Under the river water, women's faces appeared, dozens of them. Their eyes were open, and all of them were staring at Naya. Sona slowly walked closer, and with every step, the river water moved away from her, as if it feared her. "The groom chose you because you are the last descendant." Naya frowned. "Descendant of who?" Sona stared at her face for a long moment, then whispered, "Of me." The world seemed to stop. Mama Dacre immediately lowered her head, as if ashamed. Naya's breathing became uneven. "What?" Sona slowly lifted a cold hand toward her face. "I am your ancestor." Then she looked toward the forest behind them, and suddenly her face changed. Fear, even she was afraid. "He is coming." The trees began shaking, black birds flew into the sky and far away. Women's screams echoed through the forest. Sona suddenly grabbed Naya's arm. "Listen carefully. What the village believes is false." Sona's moving eyes were now filled with anger. "The groom is not protecting Kavula." She pointed toward the ground. "He has been a prisoner here for centuries, and every generation. The men of the village give him girls to keep the prison closed." Naya felt terrible cold run through her body. "Then why does he want to marry me?" Sona answered with a broken voice. "Because the prison is starting to break." The wind began blowing violently again. Then Sona whispered, "And when he becomes free, the entire kingdom of Nzale will die." A giant cracking sound suddenly came from behind the trees, like something enormous moving. Through the forest, the faces under the water started screaming, and then Naya saw two giant white lights appear between the trees, the groom's eyes. Then a monstrous voice echoed through the entire forest, "Sona!" The whole river began to boil, and Sona whispered in terror, "He remembers me. We publish many exciting stories every week on Nyota Stories TV. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story." The groom's eyes glowed between the trees, still huge, inhuman, and yet they were filled with almost human anger. The whole forest seemed to shake before him. Branches cracked loudly, the river was still boiling, and under the water, the faces of the women were now screaming silently. Sona slowly stepped backward. For the first time since meeting her, Naya saw fear in her eyes. He should never have found this place again. Behind them, Mama Dacre cried softly, "We are doomed." But Sona suddenly turned toward Naya. "No, not yet." Then she grabbed the girl's hand, and immediately another vision entered Naya's mind. She saw Kavula many years ago. The village was beautiful. There were festivals, dances, markets full of food. Then the men of the village walked into a giant cave hidden under the forest. At the center of the cave, there was a huge black stone covered with red symbols, and behind the stone, something moved, something trapped. The elders spoke with fear. "The door is weakening. It will escape. We must feed the seal." Then Naya saw the horror. Young girls were brought into the cave. Some were 13 years old, others were even younger. They cried. They begged their parents for help, but the men looked away. Then the elders drew symbols on the girls' bodies, the same symbols, now appearing on Naya's skin. Then the girls were offered to the Black Stone, and something behind the prison took them, not always their bodies, sometimes only their faces, their voices, their souls. And after every sacrifice, the stone became stable again. Naya suddenly returned to reality, screaming. Tears ran down her face. "They are monsters." Sona slowly nodded. Yes. Her voice became colder now. The men of Kavula lied for generations. They say the groom asks for girls. She looked toward the trees where the white eyes still glowed. But they were the ones who started it. Silence filled the air for a few seconds. Then Sona whispered, "At first." The prisoner did not want human sacrifices. Naya quickly looked up. What? It only wanted to remain trapped. Mama Deka gasped. Even she did not seem to know this truth. Sona continued, "But the elders discovered something." Her voice shook slightly. "The energy of young girls made the prison stronger." So they continued. Naya felt sick inside. And the prostitution? Sona's face became hard. The men started selling girls before the rituals to make money and attract traders to the region. Disgust filled Naya. They used the girls until the sacrifice. Sona closed her eyes. Yes, then she added, and over time, the suffering of the victims corrupted the prison. A deep rumble rose from underground. The entire forest shook. The white eyes slowly moved closer. Sona looked toward the river. What people now call the Groom is no longer fully the creature that was trapped long ago. Her voice became almost a whisper. It became a mix of pain, rage, and the broken souls of sacrificed girls. Then she looked directly into Naya's eyes. That is why it wears their faces. Naya's legs became weak. Everything was worse than she imagined, much worse. Suddenly, screams exploded through the forest. Torches appeared between the trees. The people of Kavula were coming, dozens maybe, hundreds, all carrying weapons, but their faces looked empty, as if something controlled them. The village chief walked in front of them with his neck still broken, and behind him, the women in red were singing. The chief pointed a machete toward Naya. "Bring back the descendant immediately." Everyone repeated, "Bring her back, bring her back, bring her back." Sona slowly stepped toward them, and the river behind her started rising like a living wall of water. The villagers hesitated. Even the women in red stepped backward, slightly. Then the chief shouted, "You should have stayed dead, Sona." For the first time, Sona smiled, but her smile was not human, and the water behind her slowly took the shape of dozens of standing women, the missing girls, their bodies made completely of black water. Their white eyes stared at the villagers. Then all of them spoke together. "You sold us." The entire forest seemed to scream with them, and suddenly, the groom finally stepped out from behind the trees. But this time, Naya clearly saw its full body, and she understood why even the elders feared it. Because under the scars, under the sewn faces, something was still moving, like hundreds of women trapped inside him. In your opinion, who is the real monster in this story? The groom or the humans? Write your answer in the comments. When the groom fully stepped out of the forest, even the people of Kavula stepped back in fear. Its giant body twisted under its own skin, as if something was trying to come out from inside. The faces sewn onto its flesh were now crying openly. Some were begging, others were screaming, and many were whispering Naya's name. The ground shook with every step it took. Then suddenly, the groom slowly lifted its head toward the sky and let out a scream so terrible that the river exploded around Sona. The trees lost all their leaves at once. Birds fell dead into the mud, and all the people of Kavula collapsed to the ground. Holding their heads in pain, the village chief screamed, "The seal is breaking!" Sonat immediately looked toward the mountain behind the forest, and Naya saw it. A giant red crack had appeared. In the sacred cliff, the prison. It was opening. Chaos exploded. Instantly, the villagers started running. Everywhere, some cried, others laughed like crazy people. Several hit themselves with stones, as if their minds were breaking apart. Then, the women in red began singing louder, much louder. And this time, their song was different, sad, ancient almost. Like a funeral song, Naya felt the symbols on her skin burn. Violently, she fell to her knees, screaming, and visions flooded her mind. She saw thousands of women, not only from Kavula, women from other villages, other kingdoms. Some had been sold. Others were given away by their own families. Some were simply poor, and all of them ended. Here, deep beneath the forest, their suffering had fed something for generations, something that became enormous too. Enormous. Then Naya saw the village elders laughing while counting money from travelers who came to buy young girls. She saw mothers forced to stay silent, children disappearing during the night, rich men coming from far away to use the girls before the sacrifices, and every time, the evil grew stronger, not because of the trapped creature, but because of humans. Naya suddenly opened her eyes, breathing hard, her face covered with tears, and finally, she understood. The real monster was not only under the earth, it also lived inside the hearts of the people who allowed this to continue. The groom was now walking toward the cracked mountain. If something was calling him, as if he was being pulled toward it. Sona shouted immediately, "He enters the crack, everything is finished." Mama Deka grabbed Naya. "What do we do?" But before Sona could answer, the village chief suddenly pointed his machete at Naya. His eyes had become completely black. "We must finish the sacrifice." Several men suddenly rushed toward Naya. Mama Deka screamed and tried to stop them, but an old man hit her hard with his stick. She fell into the mud. Naya screamed, "Mama!" The villagers grabbed her by force. Even some women were helping now, as if fear controlled them or guilt. The village chief laughed wildly, a crazy laugh. "One last girl and the seal will hold again." Sona screamed, "Fools! Your evil destroyed the prison." But nobody listened to her. The crowd was already dragging Naya toward the sacred mountain, and the closer they came, the darker the ground became. Human hands rose from the earth. Women's hands. Some tried to grab the villagers, others seemed to beg for help. The groom stopped in front of the red crack. Then, all the faces sewn onto its body turned toward Naya at the same time, and every voice spoke together, "Free us!" The village chief pushed Naya forward. "Take her! Take her back!" But at that exact moment, the groom did not move. Instead, it stepped backward, as if it was hesitating. Then one of the faces sewn onto its chest opened completely, and Naya recognized someone, her missing aunt. With tears in her eyes, the face whispered, "Kill him." Naya froze. "How?" The face slowly looked toward the crack in the mountain, then whispered, "The heart." Under the prison, suddenly, the ground violently split open beneath the villagers' screams exploded everywhere, and a giant red hand rose from the crack, a hand even bigger than the groom's. Then a second hand appeared, then a voice that ancient, deep, terrifying. Beyond words, a voice that sounded older than the world itself. "At last!" The door is open. If you made it this far, write Naya in the comments to show that you are a true fan of Nyota Stories TV. The monstrous voice echoed through the entire valley. The mountains shook, the trees cracked apart, and several people from Kavula fell dead instantly, blood pouring from their eyes. Even the groom stepped backward. For the first time, the creature was afraid. The giant red hand continued rising from the sacred crack. Its skin looked made of burned flesh and living stone, and under its fingers, human faces were still moving, like souls trapped inside its body. Sona immediately turned pale. No, it is truly waking up. Naya screamed in the middle of the chaos. "What is it?" Sona slowly turned toward her, and inside her moving eyes, there was absolute terror. The real prisoner. The ground split open even more, and unbearable heat rose from below, as if an ancient fire was burning under the entire kingdom of Nzale. Then the thing spoke again. "You fed me for centuries." Its voice seemed to enter directly into people's minds. Some villagers started hurting themselves. Others laughed until they vomited blood. The village chief fell to his knees. "Great Spirit, forgive us." Then the creature let out a horrible laugh, a laugh so deep that even the river seemed to move away. "Forgive? The crack opened wider, and this time, a giant eye appeared in the darkness below, red vertical, bigger than a house. It slowly looked at the village, then at Naya, and immediately she saw everything. She saw centuries of suffering, generations of sacrificed girls, entire villages selling their children to survive, men trading young girls for gold, salt weapons and power. She saw mothers crying silently, little girls disappearing into caves, women dying forgotten and alone, and every pain, every fear, every humiliation fell underground, feeding the trapped creature again until, it became something impossible. Naya fell to the ground, gasping for air. Now she finally understood. The monster was not born evil. Humans created it with their cruelty, their silence, their greed, and now it had become too powerful to stay imprisoned. Suddenly, the groom let out a furious roar. All the faces sewn onto its body screamed together. Then it turned toward the crack, as if trying to stop the creature from escaping. Sona shouted immediately, "He is still trying to protect the prison." Mama Deka looked at the groom in confusion. "After everything it has done?" Sona was crying now. That monster was not the enemy at first. The sacrifices drove it mad. Then the groom threw itself against the giant red hand. The impact exploded part of the mountain. The villagers screamed. Rocks fell everywhere. Then, the real prisoner finally began to emerge. Only part of its face appeared. And that alone was enough to drive several villagers insane. Some tore out their own eyes. Others ran directly into the river and disappeared beneath the black water, because the prisoner's face had no stable form. It changed constantly. Sometimes a man, sometimes a woman, sometimes a child, sometimes completely empty, as if it was made from every suffering collected through centuries. Then it looked at Naya and spoke. Softly, "Little descendant." Its voice sounded almost gentle now, which made it even more terrifying. "Come to me, and everything will end." The symbols on Naya's body burned violently. She felt her legs moving toward the crack by themselves. "Mama." Deka tried to hold her back, but an invisible force threw her away. Sona screamed, "It wants to enter your body." Panic filled Naya, because deep inside her, a small voice was telling her to surrender, to let everything end, the pain, the fear, the screams, everything. Then, someone grabbed her hand, the groom, despite its broken body. Despite the screaming faces sewn onto its flesh, the creature looked at Naya with sadness, and one of the faces whispered, "Do not become like us." Naya burst into tears. Then the groom slowly placed one hand on her chest, and suddenly, she saw the heart her aunt spoke about, a giant black core hidden beneath the mountain, beating like a living heart. Every beat shook the kingdom. "Boom, boom, boom," the groom whispered. "Destroy it before it is fully born." Then its body began to crack apart, because the real prisoner was starting to devour it from the inside. The black heart was beating under the mountain. Boom, boom, boom. Every beat shook the land of Kavula. The sky had turned red. The river was boiling, and everywhere in the forest, the trees twisted like living creatures in pain. Naya looked at the heart through the vision the groom was showing her. A giant black core, dark, pulsing, built from centuries of pain, fear and suffering. The true monster, not only a creature, but all the evil humans had fed generation after generation. The groom was slowly collapsing in front of her. Giant body was cracking everywhere. The faces sewn onto its skin were now crying silently. And many whispered, "End this. May free us, please." The real prisoner continued rising from the crack. Its giant red eye looked at the world with hunger, endless hunger. Then it spoke again. "You created me." Its voice shook people to their bones. "Now, you belong to me," the people of Kavula screamed. Some tried to run away, but the prisoner's shadow was already spreading across the village, and everywhere the shadow touched. People went mad. Mama Deka held her daughter's face with trembling hands. "Naya, listen to me." Tears ran down her cheeks. "You must survive." But Sona slowly shook her head. Her water-like eyes were filled with deep sadness. "No." Silence filled the air. Then Sona whispered, "The only way to close the prison is for the last descendant to enter the heart." Naya stopped breathing for a moment. Mama Deka screamed immediately, "No!" But Sona was already crying. The bloodline that started this curse must also end it. The real prisoner let out a monstrous laugh, as if it already knew what would happen. Naya looked at her mother, then the village, then all the women, trapped inside the groom's body, and finally, she understood. If nobody stopped this, the evil would leave Kavula, and more girls would suffer in other villages in future generations again and again. So, slowly, Naya wiped away her tears. Then she looked at her mother one last time. "I am tired of girls paying for the sins of others." Mama Deka collapsed, crying, "You are my child." Naya gently touched her face. "And you protected me until the—" And then she turned toward the mountain. The real prisoner roared immediately, because it understood what she was about to. The black heart was beating faster now. Boom, boom, boom. Naya started walking toward the crack, and with every step, the women sewn onto the groom's body slowly lifted their eyes toward her. Their invisible chains seemed to break apart. The groom whispered weakly, "Thank you." Then Naya entered the mountain. Inside, everything was alive. The walls were breathing. Thousands of voices cried in the darkness, and in the center, the black heart floated in empty space, huge, beating like a cursed sun. Naya immediately felt all the suffering inside it, all the forgotten girls, all the pain, all the violence, everything. The prisoner spoke, one last time behind her, "You cannot destroy what humans will always continue feeding." Naya slowly turned around. The creature almost filled the entire cave now, impossible to fully describe, too huge, too ancient, too filled with human hatred. But Naya did not step back. Instead, she walked toward the heart. Then she gently placed her hand on it and whispered, "Then let everything end with me." The heart stopped for 1 second. Then a white light exploded through the entire mountain. Outside, Kavula shook violently. The sky became completely white. The groom let out one final scream, a scream filled with pain, but also relief. Then its body slowly began to disappear. The faces sewn onto it were smiling now, free at last. The town, women in red disappeared one by one into the light. The river became calm again, and the crack in the mountain slowly closed, very slowly, until there was complete silence. 3 days later, Kavula had become a ghost village. Many villagers had disappeared, others had lost their minds, and nobody dared go near the forbidden forest anymore. Mama Deka left the village soon after. She never spoke again about what happened. But in nearby villages, a new rumor began spreading. People said that on some nights, near the sacred river, a young girl dressed in white appeared inside the mist. She sang softly, and when violent or cruel men came near her, sometimes their footprints stopped at the edge of the water, then nothing, forever, and the old women still whispered. Naya now protects the girls abandoned by the world, but deep inside the forest of Kavula, under the silent mountain, something still beats sometimes, very softly. Boom. Boom, thank you for listening to this story until the end. Subscribe to Nyota Stories TV for more dark, mysterious and unforgettable stories from Africa and around the world. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and prepare for the next story.